Bound to the Moon Alpha Part 1. Chapter 1, The Dream the Moon Shouldn't Have Shown. The moon was wrong. Elira knew at the moment she opened her eyes, heart pounding, skin slick with sweat despite the icy wind howling through the broken windowpane. She hadn't just dreamed of the Moon Alpha. She'd felt him. Not in whispers or shadows like the stories said. But in heat. In teeth. In hands wrapped around her throat like a promise. And the worst part? He'd looked directly at her. That wasn't supposed to be possible. Only unmated wolves were ever pulled into the Moon Alpha's dream path, and even then, the legend said it was rare. Holy. Fatal. She was none of those things. She wasn't royal. Wasn't powerful. She was a lowborn tracker with a half-wild wolf and a scarred reputation. She'd never even been summoned to a rite of bonding. So why did she wake with a silver burn on her palm? Elira, her brother's voice came from outside the door. The clan's up. The Moonstone trial starts in an hour. We're late. She didn't answer. Her hand trembled as she peeled the sweat-drenched sheet from her skin and turned her palm over again. The mark was still there. A crescent moon. Glowing faintly. Embedded in her flesh like it had been burned into her by moonlight itself. Her brother pounded again. "I'm not going," she called. "I wasn't chosen." Silence. Then, "Too bad. The Elder sent your name. Apparently, you're on the scroll." Elira froze. That wasn't possible. She hadn't signed up. Hadn't even thought about it. Only the most promising unmated wolves were summoned for the Moonstone trial, where packs gathered under a blood moon to test their bond potential. It was more ceremonial than magical. No one ever got chosen. It hadn't happened in decades. But if her name was on the scroll. The dream. The mark. The Alpha's face, beautiful and terrifying, burned behind her eyelids like a brand. No. It had to be a mistake. Didn't it? They made her wear white. It felt like a funeral. She stood barefoot on the sacred stone, surrounded by 100 other unmated wolves, all stronger, wealthier, more important than her. The Moonstone itself hovered in the center, levitating a few inches above its altar. Cracked. Glowing faintly. Waiting. The Elder's voice echoed through the clearing. "If the stone glows red when you step forward, the bond path has opened for you. If it doesn't, move on." One by one, they approached. Nothing happened. Until Elira stepped forward. The instant her foot touched the altar, the Moonstone exploded into flame. The crowd screamed. Wolves shifted. Elders fell back. The glow surged red-gold like a heart pulled from a god's chest, and then, out of nowhere, the flames twisted into a shape. A man's face. Eyes glowing. Teeth sharp. Watching. And then, impossibly, a voice rang through the stone. "Mine." Elira collapsed. And far away, in the Palace of Shadows, the Moon Alpha opened his eyes for the first time in 100 years. And smiled. Chapter 2, Taken by the Mark. The world spun like blood circling a drain. Elira heard screams. She saw light. Then darkness. Then, nothing. When she woke, the air was different. Heavier. Colder. Wrong. The first thing she noticed was the silence. Not the calm kind, but the thick, suffocating kind, like the woods before a predator strikes. The second thing was the stone beneath her skin. Smooth. Perfect. Cold. She sat up and saw it, a carriage made entirely of black stone, carved with silver veins that pulsed like living veins of moonlight. She wasn't in the trial clearing anymore. She was already en route to him. Elira Thorn, a voice murmured. She turned. A pale, red-robed priestess sat beside her, expression unreadable. You bear the Alpha's mark, the woman said. You don't speak. You don't run. You don't resist. I never agreed. You don't have to. The priestess raised her hand. Her palm bore the same crescent moon Elira had seen in her dream, only hers was scarred, not glowing. You're bound now. He's summoned you to the lunar court. Once the bond speaks, only the Alpha can break it. I'm not ready to be a Luna. The priestess looked at her, amused. None of them were. By the time they reached the gates of the Moon Alpha's palace, night had fallen. Not just any night, a blood moon night. The palace was carved into a mountain of obsidian, its towers like claws scraping the sky. Fires burned behind glass windows that moved, shifted, as if the palace itself was alive. Wolves lined the gate, armored in silver and bone. No one spoke. No one had to. They all smelled it. The bond. The scent of magic. Of fate. Of a girl who shouldn't be there, but had been chosen anyway. She was escorted in silence through corridors lined with tapestries of battles, betrayals, and bloodied crowns. And then she was brought to his door. The guards opened it with twin howls. Inside, the chamber was massive. Dimly lit by moonfire. Cold. He stood at the center, his back turned. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Bare from the waist up, his skin laced with silver tribal scars that shimmered like lightning. A long black braid ran down his spine. His wolf aura filled the room like smoke, choking and inescapable. Elira, he said without turning. His voice was quiet. Rough. Ancient. She tried to speak, but her throat tightened. He turned. His eyes glowed like molten gold. I've walked the dream paths for 300 years, he said. None of them ever found me. He stepped closer. Her breath caught. Until you. She squared her shoulders. I didn't ask for this. He stopped inches from her. Her mark pulsed. His did too, etched across his chest like a burned-in brand. That's the thing about the bond, he said. It doesn't ask. He raised his hand, stopped just short of touching her cheek. If I complete it, you'll be mine. Mind, body, soul. He lowered his voice. But there's a reason I haven't chosen a Luna in 3 centuries. Elira narrowed her eyes. Why? He leaned in. Because they all died screaming. Behind him, the moon flared red. Her mark burned. And somewhere, deep within the palace walls, a door opened with a sound like a howl. Elira wasn't just chosen. She was already inside the trap. Chapter 3, The Court That Hunts Its Queens. The first rule of the lunar court was never spoken aloud. Don't get attached to the Luna. Because she never lasted long enough to deserve a name. Elira stood in the throne hall, a cold, echoing space carved from midnight stone, its floor etched with moonphase sigils, its high windows smeared with red moonlight. Everything about it screamed power. And silence. Dozens of wolves lined the chamber. Alphas. Elders. Royal guards in half-shifted form, eyes glowing, claws visible. They stared at her not with awe, but calculation. Curiosity. Hunger. She was the new toy. The new threat. The newest doomed girl in white. At the far end, the Moon Alpha, Kaelvaros, sat upon a throne of carved obsidian. One hand draped over the armrest. The other toying absently with a silver ring made of bone. His gaze was unreadable. But Elira could feel the bond thrumming beneath her skin. A tether pulling tighter every time he exhaled. An elder stepped forward, voice rasping like rust on iron. Elira Thorn. You have been summoned by the Moon Alpha's mark and claimed by the bond. Do you accept your fate? Elira glanced at Kale. He didn't blink. Didn't move. She lifted her chin. I never asked for the bond. Gasps. A few growls. Several wolves bared their teeth. But the Moon Alpha smiled. Good, he murmured. She has a spine. The elder raised a scroll. Then let the Luna trials begin. Elira stiffened. The what? The elder ignored her. All bonded Lunas must pass the trials before coronation. To prove they are not just marked by the moon, but chosen by the blood. She turned to Kale. You didn't mention trials. I didn't mention a lot of things, he said softly. She glared. What happens if I fail? The elder answered for him. You die. That night, they brought her to the arena. Not an audience-filled stadium, but a sunken stone pit behind the palace, half-ruined, lit only by cold moonfire torches. Blood stained the rocks. And something howled below. The first trial, the elder announced, is to face the shiftless. Elira's blood ran cold. She'd heard of them, wolves who had lost control of their shifting magic. No longer man or beast. Just teeth and madness. They're kept beneath the palace, Kale said behind her. As a reminder of what happens when power breaks instead of bends. And I fight them? She asked, incredulous. No, Kale replied, stepping closer, voice low. You survive them. A door creaked open behind her. The scent hit first, wet fur, decay, old rage. Then came the creature. And the torches went out. Elira didn't run. She didn't scream. She shifted. For the first time, fully. Bone snapped. Blood roared. Her wolf came forth, silver-eyed and blazing with the bond's energy. It felt wild. New. Terrifying. But it was her. The shiftless lunged. She met it mid-air. Fangs clashed. Claws tore. Blood sprayed the stone. She fought like she was born for it. Because maybe she was. When she emerged, limping, bleeding, breathing hard, the court was silent. Even the wolves who had watched her like prey now lowered their gazes. The elder cleared his throat. The first trial is past. Kale approached. His wolf hovered under his skin now, restless. Watching her with a hunger that wasn't just physical. You're not what I expected, he said. Good, she rasped. Then she collapsed. And this time, he caught her. Chapter 4, The Queen's Room Has No Mirror. Elira woke to the scent of smoke and silver. Not burning. Smoldering. Warm. Faint. It was him. She stirred in silk sheets softer than anything she'd ever touched, the sensation both alien and suffocating. The mattress beneath her was carved into a platform of obsidian. The walls glowed faintly with etched sigils that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. She wasn't in a healer's chamber. She was in his bed. A hand brushed her forehead. Rough. Calloused. Careful. You shift well for a first time, Kale murmured. She flinched away from his touch on instinct. Where am I? My quarters. She sat up, instantly alert. Why? You were bleeding out. I healed you myself. You could have left me with a medic. I could have. His eyes glowed gold in the low light. But I didn't want to. His gaze dropped to her collarbone, where her bond mark still shimmered faintly beneath her skin like moonlight trapped under flesh. "Why are you looking at me like that?" she snapped. He tilted his head. "Because for the first time in 300 years, the moon gave me something I want." She climbed unsteadily out of bed, ignoring the sharp ache in her ribs. The room was too perfect. Too silent. Too wrong. There were no windows. No visible exits. No clock. No mirror. Elira turned, slowly. "Why is there no mirror?" Kale stood beside the hearth, his shadow tall across the wall. "There hasn't been a Luna who needed one. You think I'll break if I see myself? I think mirrors remember. And most of the ones who came before you didn't want to be remembered." Later, Elira was summoned by the Elder, this time to the glass hall, a grand, chandelier-filled corridor that crackled with ancient magic. Every portrait of a former Luna was cracked, scorched, or blacked out with spellfire. "All queens are blooded," the Elder said. "The second trial is to prove you are willing to spill your own." "What do I have to do?" she asked. The Elder smiled with teeth too sharp. "You choose between two blades. One for sacrifice. One for betrayal. Both cut you. Only one leads to coronation." She didn't ask what the wrong blade did. She already knew. That night, Elira didn't sleep. She wandered, following a whisper that wasn't meant for her ears. Behind the council chamber, through a cracked wall vent, she crouched and listened. "She's not meant to survive," said a voice. "The bond is unstable. She passed the first trial. That's the problem. If she completes the third, the bond will lock. The crown will obey her as much as it obeys him." Another voice, cool, female. "We don't want another queen. We want a replacement." Footsteps. "Then, we move before the next moon." When Elira returned to her chamber, hers now, not his, she found a single object on her bed. A mirror. Small. Cracked. She looked into it. And the reflection wasn't her. It was her wolf. Feral. Glowing. Half-shifted. And behind her, reflected in shadow, Kale. Watching her. Hungry. Waiting. Chapter 5, The Second Blade Always Lies. The moon hung low and swollen, its red light bleeding across the courtyard stones like a prophecy left to rot. Elira stood barefoot in the ritual circle, surrounded by a dozen silent elders. Each wore a black veil. Each held a blade. But only two mattered. Before her, resting on a ceremonial altar of black glass, were the twin knives of the Luna trial. One gleamed silver-white like a sliver of moonlight. The other shimmered gold, with a faint red stain near its hilt that never quite faded. One would wound her. One would expose her. Both would change her. But only one would let her live. The Elder stepped forward. "You must choose one blade. Place the tip to your heart. Press gently. If you are truly bound by the Moon Alpha's mark, the blade will take your blood, and reveal your hidden self." "And if I'm not?" she asked. "Then the blade will do what it was made to do." Elira's throat tightened. Her eyes flicked to the Moon Alpha, watching from his high perch above the circle. He leaned forward slightly, fingers steepled beneath his chin, gaze fixed on her. He wouldn't help her. This was her trial. Her choice. Her blood. She reached out, hand trembling, and picked up the gold-stained blade. The blade was cold. Too cold. The moment it touched her skin, her mark ignited. The crescent moon on her palm flared white-hot, and her vision tilted. She pressed the blade against her sternum. And stabbed. It wasn't deep. Just enough to draw blood. But it wasn't normal blood. It ran silver. Like moonlight in motion. The elders gasped. And then the altar cracked down the middle. Runes spilled across the stone in ancient language, shifting, snarling, glowing red. A wind rose from nowhere, howling around her as if 1,000 wolves were screaming from beyond the veil. She staggered. A memory exploded behind her eyes. Not hers. A crown. A scream. Fire. A woman in white turning to ash. And Kale, reaching for her too late. Elira dropped the blade. It landed in a pool of silver blood, and the magic stopped. The runes vanished. The wind died. The elders backed away. You saw something, Kale said, suddenly at her side. She didn't answer. His eyes searched hers. What did the blade show you? Nothing, she lied. Because if the memory was real, then he'd failed a Luna before. And she wasn't the first to be bound like this. But maybe. She was the first who could survive it. That night, Kale summoned her privately. She expected questions. Interrogation. Instead, she found him in a smaller chamber, bare, quiet, full of shadow. He held out a necklace. A silver pendant in the shape of a cracked moon. This belonged to the first queen, he said. The only one who wore the bond and lived, for a while. Elira didn't take it. I'm not your reminder. He stepped closer. No, he said. You're the one the moon sent to end the reminders. Later, as she lay in her chamber with the pendant in her palm, she whispered the words the blade had whispered into her mind. You are not the first Luna. But you are the last. And outside, in the hall beyond her chamber door, 2 guards whispered behind their breath. She chose the wrong blade. No. The blade chose her. Then the real trial hasn't started yet. Chapter 6, A Throne with Chains. They started dressing her like a queen before the crown ever touched her head. Silk. Moon gold embroidery. Silver-threaded leather corsets laced too tight. Gowns lined with obsidian beads. Everything beautiful. Everything heavy. Just like the eyes that followed her everywhere now. Elira stood in front of the mirror, finally allowed to have one, and tried not to see the girl she used to be. The tracker from the borderlands. The nobody with a wild wolf and a smart mouth. She looked like a Luna. But she didn't feel like one. Not when everyone was waiting for her to die. Smile more. Elira turned slowly. The voice came from the Moon Alpha's political advisor, Lady Drenna, all velvet and venom, with cold eyes and blood-red nails. The court needs to believe you're worthy, Drenna said. Not just marked. Chosen. I bled for the bond, Elira said flatly. Drenna smiled thinly. Yes, dear. But blood is easy to spill. Loyalty is harder to fake. The women of the court watched Elira like she was a prize, or a problem. The men watched like wolves with knives under their tongues. The last Luna who survived the trials disappeared without a funeral. Rumor said she ran. Others whispered she was buried beneath the moon throne. The coronation preparations included one final rite, the binding chain. The Luna was meant to receive a silver thread forged in moonlight, wrapped around her wrist, tying her to her alpha for life. But when the blacksmith arrived, the chain was not silver. It was iron-laced. Elira smelled the magic immediately. It wasn't for bond. It was for control. Kale arrived mid-ritual, eyes glowing with fury. Who altered the chain? He snapped. Silence. Until Drenna bowed. The council insisted. In case the Luna bond fails, we must prepare for stability. She's not your prisoner. She's not your equal either. Kale turned to Elira. Do you trust me? He asked. She met his eyes. And grabbed the chain herself. No, she said. But I trust the bond. She wrapped the chain around her wrist, and when the ritual activated, the iron burned away, turned to smoke by the strength of the bond mark. The elders gasped. The Moon Alpha smiled. Later that night, Kale came to her chambers, not for intimacy, but for truth. You should know, he said, I didn't choose you because I was ready. I chose you because the moon demanded it. And I haven't decided if that was a gift. Or a trap, Elira finished. He stepped closer. I've ruled for 3 centuries. Survived 4 wars. Killed brothers. Buried queens. He leaned down, gaze level with hers. But nothing has ever undone me the way you do. Their lips almost touched. But Kale backed away. And whispered, not yet. Across the palace, in a sealed war room, Drenna met with 2 masked alphas from rival packs. She's already started rewriting the bond, one snarled. If she survives the coronation, Drenna said, he won't be the Moon Alpha anymore. He'll be hers. So, said the other. Drenna's smile was cold. So we make sure she never survives the final trial. Elira visited the throne room alone. She stood before the obsidian seat of power, the one Kale never let anyone touch. She placed her hand on its armrest. The stone shivered. And in the silence, the throne whispered. You are not the first to try to change him. But you may be the first to break him. Chapter 7, The Shadowbound Guard. The 3rd trial was approaching. Elira had survived the blood moon. Passed the blade. Endured the chain. And now they were asking for silence. No warnings. No instructions. Just a note slid beneath her door before dawn. Come alone. Follow the guards in black. No signature. No seal. Just a command. So she obeyed. And found herself walking deeper into the palace than she'd ever gone before. The walls changed the farther she went, less polished, more raw. Torchlight flickered along rough-hewn stone that looked older. Too old. This part of the mountain hadn't been carved. It had been hollowed. Like something once lived here and was carved out by claw. The 2 silent guards who flanked her weren't part of the palace guard. Their armor was black. Their scent was wrong. Wolves, yes, but not like any she'd ever sensed. Not alive, not dead. Something else. Bound. When they finally stopped, they stood before a sealed stone door marked with a broken moon symbol. No words. Just the sound of breathing on the other side. The door opened with a sound like bone splitting. Inside, a single figure stood. He wasn't cloaked. He wasn't armored. He wore no crown or crest. But Elira's wolf recoiled. Because whatever he was, it wasn't just a wolf. You're her, he said, voice dry as dust. The girl Kale marked. Elira didn't move. Who are you? He smiled faintly. I was the one before. Before what? Before you. Before the others. Before the moon grew bored of his loneliness. Elira's eyes narrowed. You were bonded to him? He laughed. Not kindly. No. But I guarded the first one who was. He stepped closer. In the torchlight, his eyes shimmered, silver-edged with black. You think you're the first to touch his heart? The first to think the bond makes you powerful? The last girl he tried to protect died in this room. He threw something at her feet. A pendant. Cracked. identical to the one Kale gave her. Elira, he said, you weren't chosen. You were summoned. What's the difference? One can leave, he replied. The other is meant to break. Her hand went to the mark on her chest. It burned colder than usual. He stepped closer. You're not just bonded. You're a vessel. The bond isn't just a link, it's a gate. To what? To the thing Kale locked inside himself centuries ago. She whispered, the wolf. No, he said. Something older. As the guards began to close the door again, he grabbed her wrist. Don't complete the bond, he hissed. No matter what he offers. No matter what you feel. If he marks you a second time, it won't be Kale who wakes up next to you. He let her go. And vanished into the dark. Later that night, Kale found her in the observatory garden, alone, shaken, pretending nothing had happened. But he smelled the lie on her. You went below, he said. I was summoned. You should have refused. I didn't know what it was. He stepped close. I told you never to trust the guards in black. I'm not yours to command, she snapped. His wolf surged to the surface, sharp and raw and barely held back. No, he said. But if you keep walking through doors that were sealed for a reason, you won't survive long enough to be anything at all. That night, the moonstone in the heart of the palace cracked. A second fissure. Deeper than before. The elders panicked. The court whispered. But Kale said nothing. Because he knew. The moment Elira entered that room, something else had awakened. Chapter 8, The Memory That Wasn't Hers. The bond was changing her. Elira felt it in her bones. In the dreams that no longer felt like dreams. In the way shadows moved when Kale entered a room. In how she could hear his heartbeat from across the palace, even when she didn't want to. And now, the worst part. She was remembering things she'd never lived. The high priestess summoned her to the moon hall at dawn, where the air tasted of ash and old blood. Torches lit the sacred basin, an ancient silver bowl used for memory invocation. The third trial, the priestess said, is not of blade or beast. It is of truth. I've already bled, Elira said. Already fought. Then you'll bleed again. But this time, inside your mind. The priestess sliced Elira's palm and let 3 drops of blood fall into the basin. The water turned black. The torches blew out. And Elira collapsed, falling not backward, but inward. She stood on a battlefield of bones. The sky above her churned in red spirals. Smoke bled from the cracks in the earth. And Kale, Unaged, armored in silver, eyes black as void, stood at the center. His wolf wasn't beside him. It was him. A monstrous shadow made of teeth and fire, barely contained by flesh. Around him, wolves knelt in chains. And a woman knelt at his feet, weeping. Please, the woman sobbed. Don't do this. I have no choice, Kale said. You swore you'd save me. I will, he said, voice breaking. But not in this life. And then he marked her. Just as he had Elira. Only this time, the woman burst into flame. Elira screamed herself awake. The priestess was already gone. Only Kale stood at her side now, hands clenched into fists, jaw tight. You saw it, he said. You killed her, Elira whispered. I saved her from the thing inside me. She backed away. I saw the fire. The bond burned her alive. He nodded, slowly. And now you understand why I never marked another. But you marked me. I didn't mean to, he said. But the Moonstone chose you. And when it did, the seal on that part of me began to crack. She stared at him, horrified. So what now? He stepped closer. I don't want to lose myself again, Elira. But if I complete the bond with you. His voice faltered. You might bring him back. That night, while Kale isolated himself in the East Tower, the council gathered in secret. She saw the buried memory, Drenna said. She's closer than any Luna has ever come. Then we kill her now, an elder said. She's protected. She's vulnerable while the bond is incomplete. They passed a sealed scroll around the table, an ancient rite of assassination only enacted twice in the kingdom's history. Drenna signed first. By moonrise, they had all signed. Elira stood alone in the throne room. The obsidian seat whispered again. You saw what he did. Now see what he could become. If you mark him back, you won't just rule. You'll awaken everything he buried to protect you. Her mark burned. Her breath hitched. And somewhere deep in the palace, the fourth crack split the Moonstone. Chapter 9, The Luna Who Fought Back. The palace was too quiet. Elira felt it in her wolf's skin. No footsteps. No servants. No night-watch patrols. The halls had gone still in a way that wasn't peaceful, but expectant. Like a breath held before a scream. She was alone in her chamber, pacing in front of the fire, still haunted by the memory-bonded vision Kale refused to explain further. Her blood hadn't cooled since the third trial, and her instincts were sharpening into something rawer. Wilder. Something wasn't right. It began with a flicker. A breeze that didn't belong. A shift in the air. She turned. Too late. A figure in silver-blacked armor exploded through her balcony window, cloaked in a wolfskin mask. No scent. No sound. Blade drawn. He wasn't there to threaten. He was there to kill. Elira ducked as the dagger grazed her cheek, slashing red into her skin. The assassin was fast, inhumanly so. Not a rival alpha. Not a rogue. A trained council executioner. The ones they only sent for final judgments. She rolled across the marble floor, grabbed the broken candlestick from the hearth, and jammed it into the assassin's side. He didn't flinch. But he bled. That was something. The assassin lunged again. She raised her arm to block him. And the bond snapped open. Not to Kale. To herself. Her mark ignited. Silver light burst from her palm, knocking the assassin backward with a blast that shattered the balcony doors and blew the window drapes into flame. He hit the wall. Hard. But not dead. Elira gasped, staring at her own hand, still glowing, still burning. What the hell? The assassin rose again, bleeding from the mouth, furious. You weren't supposed to have that yet, he hissed. The bond isn't complete. You should have killed me faster, she growled. Elira shifted. Not halfway. Not faltering. Fully. Her bones snapped, fur tore through skin, her form twisting into a silver-gray wolf with glowing eyes and a scar down her shoulder. The transformation was violent, but smooth. As if her wolf had been waiting for a reason to show its teeth. The assassin froze. You're not the Luna, he breathed. You're something else. She lunged. Teeth sank into his arm, her claws tearing through his leg. He screamed as she slammed him into the wall, again and again, until the helmet cracked and his mask slid off. Beneath it, a council sigil burned into his neck. He didn't die from the final blow. She left him alive, on purpose. Kale arrived seconds later, his wolf already halfway out, rage rolling off him in waves. He saw the blood. The broken glass. The unconscious body. Then Elira, naked, shifting back, glowing with power and silver veins still pulsing through her arms. He didn't speak. He just went to her. Checked her arms. Her cheek. His hands shook. "You survived," he said. "Barely." He turned to the guard behind him. "Take him to the pit. No healing. I want him breathing and bleeding by dawn." Kale turned back to her. "You unlocked the bond without me," he whispered. "I didn't try to," she said. "It just happened." He touched her jaw, gently now. "And you fought him. Alone." "I'm not your weakness," she said. "I'm your equal. Whether the court accepts it or not." Later that night, Kale stood at the moon throne. Alone. He didn't sit. He placed his hand on the armrest where Elira had stood days ago. It pulsed beneath him. And spoke in a language only he understood. "She's not your Luna. She's your undoing." He didn't smile. He didn't deny it. He just whispered, "Good."
Every tale you hear here leaves a mark on the world beyond. If this story stirred something in you, leave a like to weave your magic into ours. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice spins a new thread in the arcane tapestry. And subscribe to our YouTube channel Arcane Stories, where myths breathe, shadows speak, and destinies awaken. The next legend is already waiting for you.